All you guys?
It does for me.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. What's up, everybody? This is Raul Avila, along with my wonderful co-host, Pastor Nate Conant. How you doing today, Pastor Nate?
It's a wonderful day.
Having a great day or what?
Fantastic day. No complaints.
Awesome. So welcome, guys. This is Father's Voice, a podcast dedicated to empowering men to embody essential qualities and values in the roles of father, husband, provider, and man of God. In each of these episodes, we will chase greatness, draw inspiration from timeless wisdom of the Bible and personal experiences from many of our guests. We are confident you're going to love this and share it with your friends. And we're ready to get started. So today we have a very special guest. I was talking before the podcast. He's probably one of the most interesting men that I know. He's very funny, very successful in what he does, and he has a lot of great stuff to talk about. So
I think one of the things, he'll be our first person that is in a certain ethnicity. So a lot of times we'll have just average normal people, but as Christian people, the Bible sort of has two different types of class of people. It's either Jew or Gentile. Now at the point of Christianity, right, that's different. But if you said Old Testament, it's basically just Jew and Gentile. So everybody's a Gentile from an Old Testament perspective, and there's Jews. And so today's our first day hosting Gil Ruttenberg. Did I say that right?
Ruttenberg,
sorry.
Yeah, that's all
and
right.
He's a Jewish man, successful man, and just a fantastic person. So today's going to be a lot of interesting things. Probably toward the last half, we'll get into a lot of sort of his background too. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I thought you told me we were going to play poker.
We can do that too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm really excited because recently I've been going through the whole story of the book of David and talking about how Jews and have been like through wars after wars after wars, and I think it's almost as if deep down inside I'm a Jew.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm so drawn to these stories. It's amazing, man.
Yeah.
I think the stories of Scripture. Cool. So if you picked out different ones, like say for example, you mentioned David, those are archetypes that parlay themselves into every area of life. And so like the Jewish story, and it truly is a Jewish story, is not only, I think, fascinating, it's archetypes of what we see in life. And so the stories that we see through the Old Testament, whether it's the character of David or the different people we see, I think are archetypes of, say for example, for fatherhood, Abraham, or for David overcoming adversity and different things like that, and having that fighter aspect. So I think the archetypes found in Scripture are sort of things that anybody can live life on. So the stories that we see in the Jewish Holy Scripture truly are archetypes and foundational to Western civilization and culture. So America and most of Western civilization is largely based upon Scripture, and it's a Judean Christian faith. And so the Judean part of it is certainly Jewish, and those stories resonate within us, and they sort of define who we are, who we become, and the struggles that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Gil, there's a lot to talk about with you. Yeah. I know it's going to be one of the great, excellent podcasts. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are now?
We got to go back to the kid part, though. Let's go back to that.
Okay,
childhood for sure.
Oh,
let's start with that.
Rich.
I mean, I was born 1974, October 6th, in Israel, just outside of Tel Aviv. And you know, even anytime I tell my birthday, October 6th, 1974. Even growing up, everybody says, "Oh, you were born right before the last war, the Arab War, right?" But I was raised there. We lived in Greece when I was 3. Sorry, I take it back. When I was 5, we lived in Greece for a year. My dad was an agriculture engineer, so he kind of did some stuff all over the place. He was an inventor, and so we kind of moved around at an early age. And when I was 8 in 1982, they said, "Hey, we're going to America." I'm like, "America? Never been to America. Didn't speak English."
So your first language is Hebrew.
Hebrew is my first language.
Wow.
So along with Aramaic, because you're in that area?
Yeah, just plain Hebrew. Not a whole lot of Aramaic, just a lot of Hebrew. And I was a third grader, and I moved here, no English. Moved to a city called, I don't know if you heard of Indio. And nobody had heard of Indio, and so we moved to Indio in 1982. I was in third grade. My dad was already out here working, and my mom brought myself and my 4 siblings. So my mom and 5 siblings, just from the ages of 9 down to 2. Imagine traveling with 5 kids all the way across the world back in the 80s. And my mom did that. we came out here. My dad was working in the in Coachella Valley doing a lot of agriculture and was working for a company. And long story short, a year went by and I thought, when are we going home? And we didn't. We ended up staying here and making a life for us. And that was my parents' intent. We didn't know that, but that was their intent. We stayed here, and I've been a resident in the valley since.
Wow. So let's go back to your father and the relationship you had with him.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was good or bad, but can you give us some, like, maybe a story or two that will sort of convey what your relationship was like with your father? You have 4 other siblings, so it's a family of 5 children, full house.
5 children, full house, and we had a very, very loving home, and our parents were both very, very loving. They were married for over 50 years. My dad actually just passed away last month. So, my dad as a child, my dad was an inventor. I don't know if you know inventors, but they're in their own world. My dad was always kind of off looking for the next invention.
A solution for the problem.
Yeah, the next solution and he spent a lot of his life just looking to solve water conservation. So he invented a low-flow sprinkler head that's called the Pulsator. You can look it up. It's the PIP Pulsator. And what he did is he converted a dripper into an actual sprinkler that's now used all over the world. They use it for frost protection of vineyards down in South America. There's some in Europe. And that's it.
Is it?
The Pulsator 205.
Give the plug to the PIP Pulsator. Follow them.
Shout out to the Pulsators.
The Pulsator. So my dad invented the Pulsator.
Wow.
So as an inventor, he was always doing something. And my mom she spent most of the time also taking care of him and all of us children. And they provided a happy home for us. Anytime, when we, as kids, it was always known, like, dinner time, we were all going to gather around the table. There was no, I'm going to go play video games or let me get my food. No, we gathered around the table, and that was where some of the best memories were made. As a matter of fact, we had a sign when Marlene and I got married. We had a sign, it was already in the home, but there was a random sign up above the table that said, "The fondest memories are made when gathered around the table." And some of our kids actually remember that. So.
Now, your dad was a practicing Jew, or how does it work in Israel, or the religious part?
We were not Orthodox. We were not practicing Jews. We did, I had a bar mitzvah. We did attend, my parents had, my grandparents always had a Shabbat dinner. So on Fridays we would go there for Shabbat dinner, and then on the Saturday we would have lunch with them. But we didn't practice we didn't attend synagogue on a daily basis or of any sort. But
sort of more of like a cultural Jew.
Correct.
In terms of holidays.
Or traditions,
Correct.
yeah.
We practice all the holidays, and as young kids, we partake in wine and all that stuff. So my parents didn't know that we can't even drink wine at a young age.
So in contrast, as being raised as a Jewish young person, how would you say that's different than what you witnessed, say, for an average kid here in the Coachella Valley?
Well, it did seem like, obviously kind of a little bit of an outsider, right? Growing up, you were like that one, as like the song say, the only kid in town without their Christmas tree, and seemed a little bit different. And at first you looked a little bit different, like didn't speak the language, and who is this kid and what is he doing here? And a lot of time, and up until recently, a lot of people still don't even know where Israel really even is, right? You've been to Israel, right? Most people, you ask them, they don't even know where it is on the map. And a lot of times they don't even know, the difference between even being Jewish and not being Jewish. And so for me, it wasn't very awkward growing up as a Jewish kid. Like I said, I had a very loving home. My parents were there for us all the time. My mom is my hero. My dad always made sure that we had a happy home. And when we got in, anytime we got in trouble, my dad used to, one of the punishments for us, because, they never really, physically disciplined us. But for us, it was always, you're going to watch the news.
The news?
That was your punishment. You're going to watch the news because the news was always on in our house. And back then, the news was the news. It wasn't like...
Propaganda?
It wasn't propaganda. There may have still been propaganda, but it wasn't...
That's true.
It wasn't so opinionated, right? It was the news. And so our punishment was watch the news and then write me an essay of some sort on what you heard on the
current affairs.
Right? Current affairs. And now it's like, now I can just, I'm like, why couldn't it be now? And I can just ask ChatGPT to write my dad an essay. And on the flip side, he always made sure that we had a good time. And my dad was really good at, he self-taught himself piano.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was always good with just on like ragtime piano. And anywhere he was, if there was a piano, he'd start playing it and everybody would gather around and have a good time. And me and my siblings would just start dancing around the piano and singing along and having a good time. Him and my mom would start dancing from time to time, and so we just. I don't want to say it was an abnormal home. It was more normal, and it was good, and it was a great childhood. A lot of great childhood memories, and till this day, me and all my siblings, we have a really close relationship.
So when you come to Coachella Valley, you're probably, like you said, I think a bit of an outsider. Was there much of a Jewish community here in the valley? None.
No, we were like. We were actually the only Israelis and Jews in town at that time, and so that my dad they always opened up their home. So we didn't realize at the time, but all these people would show up at the house, and because that was a place for the Israelis and Jews to gather around. So it was nowhere near what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, you knew if there's an Israeli in town, everybody knew him.
What do you or Jews or Israelis prefer to be known as? Like if somebody says, like the question that we asked, right? We said, is there a lot of Jewish population? Is it better to say, is there a lot of Israeli population? What is proper,
So there's a lot of Jews that are not Israeli.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of Jews in Mexico. There's a lot of Jews in Africa. I mean, there's a lot of Jews all over the world that have never been to Israel. I happen to be an Israeli Jew, so
because he was born there.
I was born there.
So citizenship is actually there.
Correct. So if you
doesn't matter.
Are you Israeli? Yeah, I'm Israeli. I'm an Israeli American.
But it's unique that he was born there. So not only is he Jewish in terms of ethnicity, he's from Israel because he was born there.
Correct.
Citizenship.
Correct.
Yeah, every time I have a conversation with Rabbi, he corrects me. Like, oh, that's kind of like borderline anti-Semitism. Yeah. I'm like,
but understand too. I would say this with Rabbi. If you get 4 rabbis in a room, you have 5 opinions.
Yeah,
it's very true.
Yeah. No. So. No, if somebody asked me, what are you? I said, I'm Israeli. Jewish is more the religion, right?
Correct.
So.
Okay, so what did your dad used to do for a living? How did he provide for you guys?
He's an irrigation engineer, so he developed the Pulsator. For a long time, my dad was more of a research and development, so he was the inventor, and then he sold off the idea.
Patent or whatever.
Correct. And so there was a couple companies internationally. There was one in Israel and one here that used to sell his product. And then they eventually said, you know what? We're going to stop paying you royalties. What are you going to do about it? This was probably in maybe the late mid-90s maybe when they stopped. And so my dad ended up in arbitration for years and years and years. And it eventually cost him his health, as he would say it, because it ended up costing him to have a stroke, and just so much stress involved in legal battles of fighting for his, just his rights. So he did end up getting the exclusive rights back to the company, along with the settlement, but none of that paid for everything that he had lost in time and all the energy that was put into it. But eventually he got his rights back so nobody can sell it. Well, there was a guy down in Chile that has this big winery that he was already quoting a price on. And he sought my dad in India. And so he flew out here and said, hey, I've quoted this project, but I cannot complete it because I'm told I cannot buy it. I can only buy it from you. He said, that's correct. We didn't manufacture any of these things. So one day my dad says, hey, and at the time I was doing mortgages, and my dad, I had a truck, so my dad said, hey, can you go with me to Irvine? I need to pick up some material. And I'm like, sure, let's go to Irvine. We go to Irvine, we pick up this material, and we're driving it back and unload. And he goes, hey, can you help me put some of these pulsators together? I go, yeah, Dad, I'll be more than glad to help you. How many do we need to put together? He's like, I need like 350,000. And I'm like, that's a lot. We had to cut this. We had to cut this sprinkler. We had to put soap on it, this little silicone material, and it was it had to be manufactured. And we had like a deadline to meet because this guy had a huge order to fill down in Chile. So that's when we actually got back into actually manufacturing the product and selling it. So I got involved in doing a lot of the manufacturing and selling it. And then it did start, taking a little bit of a toll on our relationship, as a son and father and my mom. It was always a lot of business talk. Mm-hmm. There wasn't like, how are the kids? And so I didn't like it. So
you weren't used to that.
I wasn't used to it, and I kind of started. It kind of started taking a little bit of a toll on our relationship. So I ended up backing out, and thankfully my brother, my younger brother and my brother-in-law, they jumped in and they said, look, we either got to shut this thing down or we got to put some money into it and make it bigger. So they did. They put some money into it, and my brother-in-law has been doing a phenomenal job out of Temecula, just running the operation, and it's still being manufactured and produced in all over the world right now.
Let me go back to your mindset. So because you're born in Israel, by the age of 10 you're here in the Coachella Valley, to me you're going to be raised with a different mindset than the average person. Mm-hmm. What would be the mindset that you would say is different? So when you look at the world than a typical person, say for example born in California, born in the United States, how do you look in the world differently? And by that, and some of that, just to give some context to that question, like the Jewish people have been persecuted for years. I mean, just facts, right? So whether it be the Holocaust or just different events, Jewish people in general have been persecuted. Being from Israel, probably knowing the stories, the history, etc., how do you view life that probably would be different than how we do?
Well, I mean, I can't tell how you view life. I know that the way I view life is just, I think life is just precious, and we're all here for. We're all here for a reason. And I never looked, even as a kid, I never looked at people as anybody being different than the other. Mm-hmm. I didn't look at this guy and say, oh, that guy's Hispanic or that guy's African American. It was just all the same people. And it's just I didn't look at anybody or myself as somebody that's really any different.
So would you be more suspicious of people? I mean, because I'd imagine are you more, I don't say jaded, but you know what I'm saying? Like, is this person going to take advantage of me? Do you have that? Do you come at it with that perspective? Or
No, I never have. And for me, I always give the people the benefit of the doubt. And to me, I'm very trusting. Okay. So, one thing my dad instilled in me at an early age is, he told me. I remember him telling me one time when I did Lidom, he said, "Listen, there's two things that I hate in life. If you steal from me or if you lie to me. And if you had to do one of the two, I'd rather you steal from me." Right? Because if somebody steals from me, they could always come back and say, "Here, man, I took this from you and I want to bring it back." You lie to me, the trust is broken. Sometimes it's hard to regain that trust.
There you go.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't, but if you lie to me, what else are you lying to me about? So I always try to see the good in everybody and giving them all the benefit of the doubt, because people they're not meant to just lie to you. Sometimes they don't even realize that they lied and don't even know why they lied. A good friend of mine, actually, a couple of years ago, he told me a small lie, and I said, "Listen, I'm just going to tell you this one time. You don't got to lie to me. I still love you, but you don't need to lie to me." And similar, it always stuck back to what my dad said. "Hey, if you're going to do one of the two, just steal from me. Don't lie to me." So he's like, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have lied. That was stupid. I don't even know what I was thinking." And to me, that's just important when you're looking at people in general. And I don't think that, I think to what you were saying, I don't think people view people anymore that way. Everybody's pretty guarded, right? Like what do they want? Why are they here? What are they trying to sell me? What do they want? What's in it for you? And it's like, no, I just want to love on you.
Yeah.
And it seems like we've kind of lost that for whatever reason, and
for sure
in our society. And a lot of it does have to do with some of these things we were talking about earlier, and on propagandas and what's going on out there, and why aren't we being told the truth, and what do we believe anymore? And then especially our younger generation, they're fed so much, and they're like, well, that can't be true. I mean, how many of them are even thinking, like, they're talking about 9/11 didn't really happen, or the Holocaust that didn't really happen.
Wow,
that wasn't true. And they're like, now you got, if you go down a certain rabbit hole through TikTok, you're told that Bin Laden was actually a saint, that he never did anything that he claimed to have done.
Right.
That's a good point that you bring up. We've had, actually, the last 5 guests have said that they grew up with an alcoholic father, but in your case, it was the opposite. It was a good childhood, great parents, great parenting. So what are some of the values that you would pick up, that you say, I picked this up from my dad, in addition to the 2 that you mentioned? What are those values that you would say, this is why we as men, as fathers, have to be, have to pick up on these values, because you could actually raise great children. You know what I mean?
One thing also I learned from my dad was, my dad always just tried to figure it out, right? Everything was on his way, and nothing was impossible. So you just have to try to figure it out. If it can't be done this way, but tell me how it can be done. Don't tell me it can't be done, and just try to figure it out. And, along with, obviously watching what a father should be to his children, and not only that, to his taking care of the spouse, and how you should be towards your spouse. And for me, it went even further, because my grandparents were also involved, and they were around in our childhood, and my grandparents were married forever. And my grandfather passed away at 101.
Wow. And
he was a great role model for me on how to treat your queen, your bride. And it's important, because people, a lot of times I see, and I talk to other fellas all over the place all the time, when it's like they're having these issues with their wife and this and that, and it's like, well, don't you think that you're treating her poorly? And how do you treat her like crap, but you want her to treat you like a king? Like, don't you think you should treat her more like a queen? And
what did you see with your grandfather? What are some things that you would see, like, I remember this?
My grandfather did everything. He would provide, take care of my grandmother. My grandfather took care of everybody. He was that older gentleman that, even in his 90s, if he was on the bus and a lady was on the bus, he would say, "Here, have a seat." He would give up his seat. He would open doors and all of that.
So your grandfather, though, was in Israel, correct? The country of Israel, or no?
Yeah. My grandparents, along with my mom, they came to Israel from Poland in 1947 on the Exodus after World War II.
After World War II. So did they survive the Holocaust then?
They did. They did. My grandfather escaped work camps through Nazi camps, but if you look up Exodus 1947, it was a ship that is supposed to carry 500 passengers, and with the help of the French consulate, they were able to get 4,500 passengers on that. And there was conflict out at sea, and it's actually what it would eventually launch the state of Israel as it is now in 1948. Wow. So Exodus 1947 is the ship that my mom was on, and we actually found some of the pictures from when they were on the ship.
Wow. And I know that from Poland, I think I'm going to get this right, I think it was over 90% of the Jewish people in Poland were killed in the concentration camp. It was a high death rate.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what they tried to, when they got to Israel, they tried to, the British tried to send them back to Poland. They said, no, we're not going back. And they fought. There was confrontation out at
in Haifa,
sea.
Was that?
Yep, near Haifa. Yeah. They were out at sea and just said, we're not going back because we know we're going to go to concentration camps, and that's not where they wanted to be.
But even the odds of them making it out of Poland, being a Polish Jews,
Very low odds. Yeah,
I think it's 90+%. It's insane how effective they were at killing,
Sure.
specifically the Polish Jews.
Wow.
Almost all of them.
yeah. So they made their way to Israel, and they made their life there. And my grandfather in the early, late 40s, early 50s, he was driving trucks. And I don't know, you've been to Yafo?
Mm-hmm.
Just in Old Town Tel Aviv, there was a clock tower there. My grandfather my grandfather had an apartment there with my grandmother, and they used to park his truck there and wait for his assignment as a truck driver, and that's how he made his living at the time.
Did he ever tell you stories from the Holocaust or any of the?
That's one thing that most of them did not do, is share a lot of stories from back then.
Too much trauma.
Yeah, and but he did. But you hear people say never again, and my grandfather used to say, like, if it happened once, it can happen again. And here we are today on what we're dealing with. It's nothing short of what it was. Mm-hmm. It's just a different time, but
that's kind of like same little things that are kind of like repeating themselves in a way.
Absolutely, like some of these things happening in our universities that are. Whether they're... Yeah,
was it yesterday? UCLA, something happened?
Between UCLA, Columbia, UCLA, a bunch of the universities.
USC, and, it's a lot of the similar stuff, right? They're preventing people that happen to be Jewish, no, you can't come back here. And they're shouting stuff at them, like, go back to Poland and kill yourself. And, it's like... I'm like... where would we be right now if somebody was at a university shouting at a Mexican, like, why don't you so-and-so go back to Mexico where you come from? Or
how do they allow that?
It's just it's crazy that it's being allowed. And that's what's even more dangerous, is that we've gotten there, and with so much just propaganda and misinformation, and people are uneducated, and they're banking on that.
I think I'm going to give a big scale picture from my perspective. So Genesis 12, there's a covenant made with the Jewish people, Abraham. It's called the Abrahamic Covenant. And basically God says, whoever, this covenant I'm going to make is going to be everlasting. So there's nothing you can do to break it, is the concept. Like, literally, you can be an idiot. I'm still keeping my covenant, God says. And part of the covenant is, God says, I'm going to bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you. And the reality of the Jewish people, because it defies explanation as to why how could you hate people you don't even know so much? Yeah. It just defies. To me, it has to be spiritual. And by that, I mean it's demonic. To me, there's not a logical, practical, rational reason why you could hate a person without knowing them. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, with them not doing much wrong or evil. Like, the Jewish people aren't running around with machine guns mowing people down. That's not going on. They're generally good, contributing people. And so to me, it's demonic. There's no explanation for it. But I would say, for those that try to curse Israel, first of all, it's demonic, because what we're seeing in America right now, there's no explanation for it other than it's spiritual somehow. Mm-hmm. And if it's spiritual, it's either good or bad, and it's not with the good in terms of my perspective of the Christian faith. Mm-hmm. So it's demonic, and it's certainly coming against them, but you got to be careful, because what God said in Genesis 12 to Abraham is very true. God will bless those that bless those people, whatever, and he'll curse those that curse them. And so to me, what's happening right now, it's a tragedy. It's sad. I'll never stand on that side of things. But it has to be demonic. It doesn't make sense what's going on.
Yeah,
we just celebrated Passover, right? And we all know how that ended with the plagues, and it's just like you were just talking about. And God's not going to forsake the Jewish people.
Never.
So it's just rough to see it happening right now. It's actually sad. It's disgusting. I have some of my best friends I know people that are Palestinian. I have some really close friends that are Iranian. My sister-in-law is her family is Persian Jews from Iran. So people don't understand that, most of it is government, right? And it's a lot of, it really is a lot of propaganda that's out there. Sure. There's a lot of hate that needs to be sold to
failed governments like Hamas, Iran. They want to find a bad guy because they really know they're the bad guy. Mm-hmm. And so the fall person becomes the Jewish nation and Jewish people.
Yeah. And Hamas is, they're identified, they are a terror organization. Mm-hmm. And, they were put into power by the people living in Gaza that, you know, the Israelis left them in there. They left them there to do what they need to do.
To govern themselves.
To govern themselves. There's a lot of aid. I mean, as a Palestinian, you can go in and out of Gaza. You can go into Israel, right? You've been to Israel and you've seen Muslims, Christians, Jews, gays, lesbians, everybody there doing whatever they can. I was talking to a gentleman the other day that, you know, he came from USC from one of their rallies, and he's like, you know, I just, you know, like for me, I know that like if I went to Israel, you know, it won't be acceptable being gay. And I said, are you out of your mind? I'm like, do you know
Tel Aviv has a big
Tel Aviv has I said, you actually have they celebrated more in Israel than they do here. I said, you know where you can't be gay? In Gaza. You know, so
it's a lot of misinformation for sure.
There's a lot, and you know, if you go and you try to talk to some of these, you know, protesters and even have a conversation and ask them, like, what are you protesting? They don't know. They have no idea. And they say, you know, they're chanting, you know, from the river to the sea. And you can ask them, can you tell me which river and which sea? And they're like, sense. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I'm still saying it's spiritual, because you can't rationalize or talk common sense with somebody who's blinded. Yes. The Bible even says that Paul says the God of this world, the devil, has blinded the eyes of many people. And I believe their eyes are blinded, and it has to be spiritual, because you cannot make sense of the hate that's going on. One of the things that I cringe for and feel for, if you look at the Jewish community, go back, say, 100 years pre Second World War, the Jews were, the diaspora, they were everywhere. And Israel as a nation didn't even exist. And then they've all been sort of brought back to Israel. And I agree with Joe Biden. I don't agree with him on much, but he said, I'm a Zionist, and I agree with that as well, because without a Jewish nation, the Jewish people can't survive. And it's true.
Correct.
But I see a lot of persecution that happened. So when the Jewish people were everywhere, they came back to Israel from a lot of other countries. A lot of them came from Russia, from obviously the remainder from Poland or everywhere else, and they came and created a nation. Right now, the United States is the second, right behind the state of Israel, the second biggest home for Jewish people. Really, even the city of New York, I think it's like the second biggest city. I cringe that the United States begins to head down a road becoming antagonistic in terms of the politics and a lot of policies towards Jewish people. Yeah. And I think we already see some of that beginning to happen. Yeah. Where I've never wished this, because the United States is a great country, but I would hope we never begin to curse God's people in that sense, because I do believe there's blessings on the United States, because we've always sought to be a blessing to the Jewish people.
Yeah. This is definitely a time to, you know, stand up and stand up for humanity.
For sure.
You know, the Israelis do not want war. They didn't start this. They do not want war. And there's an old phrase by our old Prime Minister Golda Meir in the last war. She said, if the Arabs put down their weapons, there will be peace. If the Israelis put down their weapons, there will be no more Israel. Yeah. So when you look at Israel on the map, right, it's this tiny little circles surrounded by just big countries that just do not want them there. Wow. And so the military is called the Israeli Defense Force. It's not the offense force. They're there to defend. They're there to defend the country.
This is good. It's good information, man.
And you know, I would say for the Jewish people, they have a right to defend themselves. But I would also say, for me as an American, I'm going to do all that I can to defend the people, primarily because I know that God's hand's on them and God's blessings on them. And then as a Christian, I don't see there's another way of living other than honoring what God says. And if you look at, we can go through all kinds of history on it, but even just recently when Iran launched, I think, 300 different missiles and drones, and none of them hit. Not a single one of them had caused any damage or loss of life in Israel. Correct. And we could talk about how the technology, the Iron Dome, and the different layers of protection they have, but the big story is there's a God who's sovereign and wise and loves the Jewish people, and he will protect them. And so as much as they use all the technology and they need to have every gun, bullet, tank, plane they possibly can, and we as a country, the United States, should support them, there's also a God who loves them, cares for them, and will watch over them. And so anybody that wants to kick them out of that land will always fail. They just will. Because you're going against God. You're not just going against the people. You're going against the creator of the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember how King David just could not lose a war, a battle, because he would always say, Lord, should I go into this battle? And then when the Lord would say, yes, go and you will be victorious, he would just go and be victorious. He would not lose a battle. That was pretty cool.
You know, and
God-driven.
Throughout all this mess, we actually still forget that it's been over 200 days where, you know, we still have innocent hostages.
Sad.
You know, I still wear this every day. It just says, bring them home now. Why are they not home? You know, it's like they released these, they just recently released this propaganda videos of the hostages. It's like, instead of releasing these videos, why don't you just release the hostages, right? And Israel, going back to what you were saying, Israel's the only country that's ever had, they're the only country that actually has to explain their actions on why they're defending themselves, right? I go back to when we were talking about earlier, right? 9/11 happened. Nobody questioned on 9/12 or 9/13, like, what are we doing, right? We came out and said we will not negotiate with terrorists. And now we're in a society where hey, we need to listen to what the terrorists, these poor terrorists, have to say, right? Like, let's hear them out. Why?
Poor terrorists,
right?
Yeah.
Poor terrorists. These, and I could ask anybody, you know, if somebody came into your home and raped your wife and kids and brutalized them and beat them up and took them out of your home, would you not want to do something about it?
Right.
You'd probably do anything you could to save your family, right?
For sure.
We still have innocent hostages that are still in Gaza against their will, and some of them are Americans. So,
mind-boggling.
yeah.
So, do you want to switch back to fatherhood?
Yeah, just
'Cause
for a minute. There'll be more to be said about Israel,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go back into a little bit maybe of yours. So after you get raised, great home, Jewish home. Let's go right to you get married. You have several kids, right, in your marriage. So walk us through what it is for you to be a father as well.
So, you know, I was a father at a young age of 17. My daughter was born.
Let's go. Jewish girl or?
No, I wasn't. It wasn't from a Jewish girl, but when my daughter was born, I was 17 in high school, and I just knew I had to grow up quickly. And so at the age of 17, I was a senior at Indio High School, and I was living at next to the hospital in those apartments. I think they were called Summer Breeze. I don't know what it is now, by JFK. At my own apartment, working at Sizzler and Del Taco. So I had to grow up fast and become a dad fast, because as you guys know, there's no real owner's manual other than what you saw from you know, if you saw your dad or your grandfather, but there's still no owner's manual. They're still going to get sick. They're going to you know, they're still going to have different things that you got to deal with, and most of all, patience. So at 17, it wasn't easy. By 19, I already had my second child with my first son. So my daughter, Marlene, she's my oldest, and then Israel was my oldest son. And then a few years later, and I at that time, I also at 18, I did get married to my first wife, and we were both young, and it was for kind of just wanting to do the right thing, and it's like I need to do the right thing and marry their mom, and we were married for almost 10 years, and we had another child right before we split up, and you know, we just weren't really good for each other. The one thing that I would say, you know, with a divorce is, and I tell that to adults nowadays that are even thinking about it or that are going through that. It's like, you know, you always have to remember that the children didn't ask for that. And so it almost never ends in a great way, but you got to try to do your best for your kids. And for me, I fought tooth and nail to make sure that I understood. Even, you know, a lot of times dads don't know, like, you also have rights. Just because it didn't work out with the mom doesn't mean that, you know, you don't have rights. So I had father's rights, and so I fought and eventually was able to get 50-50 custody with my kids. So I she
didn't want that. The mom didn't want that.
Yeah, most of the time they don't, and a lot of times it's not necessarily in the best interest of the kids if they want it or not. There's a lot of control that has to do with that, and it goes both ways. Sometimes it's mom, sometimes it's dads, and sometimes people are just maybe angry and that it didn't work out, and they just want to make each other miserable. And, you know, we see it all the time, right? Divorced people, they go and, hey, let's let's go ruin everything we worked on, and let's ruin each other's credit, and and then they go to court, and they battle in court, and then they end up finally after, $50,000, $100,000 in court fees, they end up agreeing for what they should have agreed for in the first place anyway, right? But that took some time in my life, and for a while I was single and raising my kids, and I really learned at that time. I actually really learned how to love myself, and love to be by myself, and be able to go out and have dinner by myself, or go watch a movie, or go watch a game, and just come home and love being by myself. And I remember somebody asking me one time, like, "Hey, Gil, I had a lot of women friends at the time. They were strictly just friends, and I remember one asking me, like, "Hey, you're a really good dude, and why are you by yourself? Why aren't you with somebody?" And I said, I am just really happy being by myself, and if somebody comes along that can make me happier than I already am, then that'll be my time. And so, just so happens that Marlene, who's now my wife, not my daughter Marlene. It's funny, I met another Marlene, and she came into my life and just checked all those boxes, and she made me happier than I already was. And I'm like, so I said, there's nothing else for me to look for. So within a few months, we got together in March of 2009, 2010. We got engaged a few months later in September on her birthday. I surprised her with her first surprise birthday party, and then I had a little cake. Quick story about the cake. So in June, we had started seeing each other, and she made me a heart-shaped cake, and on the cake, it was a chocolate cake. Do you like chocolate cake?
Oh, for sure.
You gotta love chocolate. Everybody loves chocolate cake. And she wrote on there, "Will you be my boyfriend?" I said, of course. We're seeing each other. Let's make it official. She's like, "Yes, I needed an official date." And so on her birthday, I surprised her with her birthday party, and then I made a heart-shaped cake, and I wrote on there, "Will you be my wife?" And
nice.
And so we were married in November. We were married November 5th, 2011.
Wow,
that's
exciting.
Really cool, man.
And getting married, she came in I came in with 3 kids. And she came in with 3 kids.
Blended family.
And it's a blended family. And I'll tell you, as we talk about fathers, a bigger challenge and a bigger, most difficult role that I've ever had, and I know that other people have, is becoming a stepfather. And even I can say, even for Marlene, she had it tough as a stepmother. She probably actually had a little bit tougher than me, because my kid's mom did not make it easy for her, and my youngest son also, he's admitted, like, I probably made it a little bit more difficult than for Marlene. But when you have kids, right, it's one thing when you try to discipline your kids, but when you have that stepchild, and they just look at you and they say,
"You're not my dad."
You're not my dad.
For sure.
What do you do? And you also have to respect and understand that they actually do have a dad, and I have a great relationship with my kid's dad, but with my baby daddy.
Yeah.
But I formed a great relationship with them, and I always refer to them as my kids. I'd never say, like, "Oh, this is my stepkids," and they're my kids. And now they're all adults, and it's up to both of us on if we want to continue
put the work in,
put the work in, continue having the relationship. But they all know, my kids, Marlene's kids, our kids, they know that they can come to each and every one of us, either one of us, whenever they need anything, and they know that I'm there, and I'll always be a father to her kids, my kids, and now we graduated 9 years ago. We graduated to grandparents, so we now have 4 granddaughters and another granddaughter on the way. So 5.
Nice, congratulations.
So 5 granddaughters. Nobody wants to have a son here, but
all girls. There you go.
I love them.
So going back to for just a moment, navigating, and this can help somebody stepping into being a stepdad, that kind of role. How was that? So were the kids young enough? Are they teenagers at the time you and Marlene get married? What's the age groups like? I know they're all within a decade.
Our youngest sons are actually 1 day apart. We always call them the twins.
Okay.
Kind of like the movie Twins. Remember Danny
Arnold.
DeVito and Arnold, and they also were a lot like the movie Step Brothers, where they just both drove us crazy. And they were 8. Both of them were 8 at the time, and then
the youngest ones,
and then the rest were teenagers. My daughter was the oldest. I think she had just turned 18 or was about to turn 18 and graduate. She was graduating high school. So at one time we did have 5 of them living with us under the roof, and they all kind of got along, and but it was like I said, it was not easy, and you had to be able to respect that there was another parent and you're not the final say so, and it's very, very, it can be very, very challenging, and
I'm sure.
And so for a lot of people out there, I can understand and relate to it. It's just
what are some of the things that are strategies, I guess you could say, that you would say, you know what, this was pretty effective dealing with my step kids versus my kids?
Well, definitely a lot of patience, a lot more than you already have, and just giving you have to make sure you give the respect to that other parent, and as well as to the child, and understand that they didn't ask for you to come into their life either. So giving that child the respect, and because like you said earlier, we said a lot of them, their instinct is like, well, you're not my dad, or you're not my mom, I don't need to listen to you. And it's like, you're right, you don't, but I'm here to help you, and I'm here to love on you, and you should, and you just need to love on them, because they still need the love, and they still need the guidance. And if they don't want it, then make sure to let them know, like, hey, if you don't want it, that's cool. If you do, I'm still here.
Giving them their space to process even what they're going through, because who knows what's going through their mind because of the
and let
separation.
them know, I'm not here to replace anybody. You have a dad, you have your father, but I'm here. Now you got another one. So, and a lot of times there is a little bit of insecurities with the other parents, right? And they don't want to be like, well, you're not their parent, and so it makes it a little bit more difficult for moms and for dads. So I think as a parent, being a parent is tough. Being a step parent is just that much tougher. But no, I would definitely say continue showing them, guiding them, just as if they're your own blood, just nothing differently. Just make sure that you're there for them, and know that, for me, I think my youngest, which is Marlene's youngest, he, him and I always butted heads. And it was a lot of times just because I just could not sit there and stand to listen to him be disrespectful to his mom. But as a dad, you want to just like, dude, like I'm ready to I'm ready to choke you out, right? And do not talk to her like that. But it becomes difficult. And over the years, we've him and I developed a really good understanding, and I still showed him a few things on what to do, and again gave him the respect that he has with his dad. And till this day, him and I have a great relationship, and we love each other, and so do my daughters.
Now your kids, they went through that. So like you mentioned earlier, kids don't ask to go through that experience of they're seeing their parents get separated. What are some things that you saw with your kids? I don't know if it's too personal, but that you saw them struggle with, and then what did you do as a dad, to help them overcome that?
I'll give you an example. First thing you do when you get divorced, right? You go to mediation. And being that when we were in mediation, I was the Jewish parent, and at the time, their mom was a Catholic. So instantly they say, okay, well, you get the Jewish holidays, you get the Christian holidays. And you don't think much. You don't even think twice about it. You're like, yeah, cool. I don't want, you take that, right? You take Mother's Day, you take Father's Day. But what do they want? Right? Nobody can sit there and say, hey, what do you want? Because I can tell you that over the years, especially once I remarried, my kids probably wanted to come around on certain Christian holidays and spend Christmas with us, or Easter. But they were afraid of for them, and they were a little more afraid of the confrontation with their mom. Any Mother's Day or Father's Day, it's like, if my kid said like, hey, we want to go see my dad and Marlene for Mother's Day. Like, oh, what do you mean? It's Mother's Day. This is my day. And it's like, as parents they don't understand that sometimes. Like, it's not your day. It's their day. Let them do what they want to do. I'd never, till today, ever stopped them from going to see their parent if they want to see their parent. Just even when you hear parents like, this is my weekend. Yeah, but I want to go say hi to my mom. Or I want to go say hi to my dad. Like, okay, great. Go say hi to him. So unfortunately, it just doesn't happen easily. But I saw my kids go through that, and I would get bad mouth to my children, and it's sometimes it's just sad because again they didn't ask for that. They didn't ask to be born into the parents, and they didn't ask for. They're not the ones that says, hey guys, why don't we get divorced? Let's all get divorced. No, it's something that the parents decided, and then the kids never win in that scenario. So
it sounds like more, as the adult to not let your ego get in the way, pride, and it's not about you, because it's really the kids didn't ask for this. So see it from the point of view of the kids. That's what I'm getting. The minute your kid is born, there's no more you. It's not about you. You set the ego. You set your ego aside. You set your pride aside. There's no room for that. It's not about you. And like you said, sometimes we do. We just make it about us, and it's like, it's not. And so I've watched it, and it's been difficult. It's like a spiral, like a negative, like a crazy cycle. Yeah. When you make it about you instead of, hey, look, me and my wife can't, we're just not gonna make it. But now let's focus on the kids and make them a priority.
Yeah. And parents just they really struggle with that because they're like, no, I don't want to see you happy. Yeah. And it shouldn't be that way. You should still be able to co-parent, and then as kids get older, give them a little more the freedom of the choice. Like, hey, I can if I can make it work. Why do I need to choose? And I think for my kids, I think that they've seen stuff, and so they're like, I don't even know now. I don't even know if I want to have kids because I don't want to go through that if that ever happens. So. You know what I mean?
I would say, so I think in every relationship, speaking to dads and fathers out there, I know with my wife and my marriage, I made the choice that like I'm going to stay with her for the sake of the kids. And I know that's not always possible, but I know for me that was like my commitment. So like quite literally when I looked at marriage, I didn't look at it as like if she does this, I'm leaving. And I did that primarily in my mind, and my choice was I want to be there for my kids. I want to watch them grow. I want to be there with the moments. And so for me, like if my wife, say for example, God forbid, she went out and cheated in whatever way, I'm not going to leave her. Now it would be easy to say I'm going to leave her if you do this, because everybody always has that, whatever it is, that red line. But I think in a marriage, for the sake of the kids, if at all possible, I know it's not always possible, but if at all possible, it's best to try to go into a marriage without saying, if you this, then I'll do that. But rather say, I'll be committed to this, especially for the sake of my kids. So like, God forbid if my spouse ever went out and became a prostitute on the streets. It didn't happen. I'm just giving a hypothetical. I still want to be there for my kids. So we're going to live together. And I know this isn't always possible. I get it. I hear you. But for the sake of the kids, I want both of the parents, so me and my wife, to be part of my kids. We both love our kids. And I've seen a lot of times when divorce comes into the situation, parents get really selfish and the kids suffer the most. Correct. And then the fortunate part of divorce is it's sort of marriage is sort of a legal contract, right? Where there's financial implications in the kids and things like that. So a lot of times when people go into divorce, mom and dad are going to fight over it all. At the end of the day, the kids are suffering the most from whatever. Like we can earn the money again, we can whatever it again, but the kids sit there and suffer, and it causes a lot of permanent trauma with kids. Yeah. And so as much as possible, I would say to any person in a marriage, try to work things out. Like try to work on what you have versus trying to get out of what you're in, especially if there's kids involved. And I know you might have say, well, I can't, whatever, she's cheated on me, or I can't, whatever, he this on me. Try to work it out for the sake of the kids. It will be a better outcome if you can work it out. And so my advice to any person out there, man, woman, whatever, in a marriage, if you have kids, try to work it out as best you can.
And once they grow up, then you could get divorced, right?
You can do whatever.
Well, sometimes, but sometimes, you know, there is, sometimes it might be too toxic. And
yeah, that's
it
true.
might
That's
be,
true.
you know, the kids might be more in harm's way, and it might be like, listen, it's probably best that we just go our separate ways. So our kids don't need to see us. They need to come home and see us fighting all the time. And that's not healthy either.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I can tell you that my kids saw me, you know, once we went our separate ways, they saw me living a happier and healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, I understand.
And then I was extremely, extremely blessed and fortunate to have got with Marlene. And when we got married, she put all the effort into making sure, like, that she was going to try to, you know, do whatever that she can, keep the family together, be an amazing stepmother. And it wasn't easy. I can tell you that it wasn't, because, you know, my kid's mom did not make it easy on her. And Marlene kept her patient. She kept pushing through. And now that the kids are adult, you know, they can also choose to either have the relationship with us as it continues to grow. And we're forever going to be there for them. But, you know, now Marlene and I are, you know, our kids are all adults, and now we get to be just Gil and Marlene and husband and wife, and date night Tuesday, and hashtag date night Tuesday.
Yeah. I've been date night with these guys.
That's
They're
good.
fun. They're a lot of fun.
It's been going for, you know, 5-6 years strong, because we just decided, you know, a lot of times people don't realize it. Like, you need to make sure you continue to date your spouse. And as we get so busy, you know, we one time decided, like, listen, it doesn't have to be a formal dinner, steakhouse, sushi, but let's just make sure that
Morton's
prioritize the relationship.
Just prioritize it, and make sure that, you know, you set that one night aside where you don't make any plans.
Yeah.
So if somebody tells me, like, hey, you know, let's go do a podcast. You free Tuesday night? Nope.
Yeah.
Tuesday night is our date night. And
cool.
You know, one time in the 6 years, Marlene scheduled a hair appointment, and I gave her a hard time. Believe it or not, I gave her, what do you mean? What do you mean?
But she forgot, or?
She didn't forget. As you know, I mean, I don't deal with hairstylists, but, you know, if you deal with a hairstylist, sometimes it's really hard to get that appointment, the scheduling.
Yeah.
And I can tell how hurt she was that I made a big deal out of it, and she canceled it. And then right after that, I said, hey, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know why I was being a jerk. Like, you could have just did your appointment, and then we could have gone to a drive-through somewhere, because it still would have been that Tuesday is, you know, meant for us. And we still hashtag it. Tuesdays are meant for us.
So
go ahead.
Good.
I have a question. So I agree with Pastor Nate in that, like, fight, even if it's weird, you could make it better. Just fight for it. I'm totally for that.
Yeah.
And then we have Quentin Dr. Q.
The legend.
Last week.
Sensei.
Grandmaster.
Last week he was talking about how it, you know, as kids, you know, as when he was young, he just saw that it was better for his parents to separate. So that was like from the kid's perspective,
correct,
which was really interesting to me. What is your perspective? Do you fight for the marriage no matter what, make it work, fix it, or like right now with Marlene, like if things start not working out, do you fight for the marriage, or is there a limit, and what's your limit where you say, you know what?
No, you know, you definitely want to fight for your marriage. But anytime, I mean, in any relationship, whether it's a marriage, business relationship, when it gets to the point where it's more bad than good, like, what are you really fighting for? Right? And you're both if you're both miserable and it's just toxic, and especially if there's children involved, and like I said, their days should be filled with joy, happiness. You know, like in my experience, the dad playing the piano, mom and dad dancing. Not every day mom and dad are fighting and doors are slamming, and there's some situations, unfortunately, there's you know, physical harm that's getting done. And when you get to the point where you're like, listen, we just we might be good people. We're just not good for each other. But can we just agree that we love our kids and we want the best for them? And I've seen parents that do a great job of co-parenting, not together, and it's very rare. I just wish we would see that more often because, like I said, it's not their fault. But is it great to fight for the marriage? Absolutely. It takes a lot of work for both people. Marriage is not easy. Marlene and I, we have great times, and I'm married to a very lucky woman, and
you tell her that?
She knows she's married. She's a very lucky woman. Yeah. And we're both very lucky, and Marlene and I actually don't, we don't complete each other. We really just complement each other. So we know that we also know how to say sorry when it needs to be said, and especially I mean for men have a hard time just saying like, hey, I'm sorry, right? I have men that that I work with and that work for me, and friends of mine that I'll tell them, listen, when they come to me, I said, hey man, I'm about to tell you it's not maybe what you want to hear, but you need to stop what you're doing, and you need to call her and you need to say you're sorry, number one, and then we'll get into the rest of how you can repair it. Because, right, like you said, people will start. There might be a fight, and then we start even forgetting why we even fought. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's like, you're married to this person. Don't you want them to be happy? Don't you want to protect them? You want you want them to feel the love. You don't want to hurt the person that you love the most. But as guys, we don't.
Yeah. I'll say, just following up on a few of those things, I would agree with Gil. At the point of physical abuse, I think there needs to be some kind of separation. I'm still not an advocate for divorce, but at the point that there's physical abuse, no person should be, like, once you go there, and it's really hard to come back.
How about verbal abuse?
That's debatable. To be honest with you, I think that's a slippery slope of what verbal abuse is, and I try to speak life over things, and there's gonna be different opinions on what verbal abuse is.
It's subjective.
It's so subjective, and for me, women usually talk about 2 to 3 times as much as men. So and I'm sure guys can do the same because guys can do same things, but I don't know where it starts or stops. Yeah, I think we should.
I think it's just as bad, and I don't like you. I don't advocate divorce. I think if you can make it work, absolutely make it work. But when you can't make it work and you're forcing it to work, and it's like it keeps going from bad to worse, and there's physical abuse and there's verbal abuse,
infidelity multiple times, and then it's just very, very bad and toxic environment, and you're just like, I need to get out. And then you get out, and it's like, all this weight just lifted, and then your kids still have a better they have a better shot at seeing you happy. They can be happy, and they don't have to see that all the time. So I think we do make the mistake from time to time of, like you said, just, hey, you know what, I really don't like you, but we're going to stay together. We're going to try to make it work because of them. And I think that's a problem because people end up staying married for the wrong reasons. I can tell you, I got married for the wrong reasons. But, would I do things differently? I wouldn't. I don't regret having my daughter when I was 17 because now I'm still like super young, sexy dad with grandkids, and my kids are all old, and my kids are all older. And I told my oldest son, I told him a few months ago, I said, hey, because we buy properties, and I said, the one that's gonna really enjoy these things are gonna be you guys. And it's like, what do you mean, Dad? When I'm 100, you're going to be 120. So.
I'll use a quote from, there's a rabbi, he wrote a book called Kosher Sex. I forget the rabbi's name, but he said the goal of marriage isn't to make you happy but holy. And so from a biblical perspective, it's probably true. And I know that happiness is something baked into American culture, right? Because even in our Constitution, the preamble, it says the pursuit of happiness. And so although happiness happens to do with what's happening, happiness may not be the pursuit. Right? Yeah. And whereas, so if like truly in a godly, sanctified marriage, truly marriage is supposed to make you holy. And I think that holy is the aspect of whole. You're only going to be made whole in Christ, but truly when Adam was alone, it wasn't right. God didn't say this is good. It's when he had a wife that he was. And so I think for every person out there, try to put the work in on your marriage. Yeah. Truly, if you ever have conflict issues, try to deal with the issues so that it becomes better. But I do want to ask you something, Gil, before we wrap things up. And it's specifically, so you're born as a Jewish young man, and then at some point you come to Christian faith. And can you just succinctly sort of give us how that happened, or how, obviously you have a background somewhat. I know you weren't necessarily religious, but how'd you go from being born Jewish into the Christian faith? Sort of a rare
Well, I'm still
conversion.
Jewish. My wife's Christian. I'm Jewish. Yeah, I mean, I still practice Jew. We still have the I still do all the Jewish religions and all the Jewish holidays.
But you have faith in Jesus being Messiah, or?
No, I'm just Jewish.
Oh, you're still Jewish?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm Jewish, and wear the yarmulke and the kippah, and my wife's Christian, and we both support each other.
Gotcha. So your faith is still
Judaism, yeah.
Judaism. Okay, so you don't believe that Jesus was Messiah?
No.
Beautiful.
So
Didn't know that.
So how?
That's fascinating.
But Marlene does.
Yeah.
So okay, so it takes a lot of maturity to be in a relationship where the big check mark is not the same, like faith.
In terms of faith, yeah.
Like me, when I got married, I had a list of check boxes.
Yeah.
She thinks like me,
Yeah.
she's in the same, she loves the same thing I do.
Yeah.
We go to the same, she grew up Jehovah's Witness, and I grew up Catholic.
Yeah.
But then I was passing out my business cards in Walmart, meet Pastor Obed, he invites us, we both go, and then we just go.
Yeah.
So in your case, you support her because I see you at church, you go, but
I support her.
Yeah,
I've never, and I've gotten close with, Pastor Obed, Rabbi Brian, all those guys, and they've never, same thing with Marlene. They never say, hey, you need to convert, or I need to convert, and everybody's welcoming. I'm loving on people, they're loving on me, and we both support each other.
So does she go to Shabbat, or you don't even go to synagogue, do you?
We do Shabbat. No, we do Shabbat at home. And no, there's not a synagogue that I've been attached to here, but like when we went to when we were in LA, we do, from time to time, we do go to synagogue. It is still separated, so if Marlene were to go, she's women on one side and men.
Oh, so you go to Orthodox one, more the conservative.
Yeah, correct. We go to more Orthodox Ashkenazi synagogue whenever we're in LA. But Shabbat we do at home. We light candles at home. We do. I make the challah bread. If you want to come by,
yeah, if it's in a rabbi, it's fantastic.
Piece of challah bread. Probably piece of challah bread.
Yeah. Wow.
So right now tell us about where you're at right now in life. What do you do? Is there something that people should know about you?
Yeah. The one thing I was gonna mention, and I usually mention this early enough, is it's probably, right now is probably one of the best times to buy a new Honda.
There you
Honda
go.
the Desert.
I agree with you.
And if you don't drive a Honda from Honda the Desert, then I don't know what's wrong.
You're missing out.
You're missing out.
Shout out to Honda of the Desert.
Honda the Desert, yeah. But I've been with the dealership now in the auto group for since 2011, and I've just started out as like a floor manager, became sales manager, general sales manager. In between that, I had a little bout with cancer, and I was out for a few months. Came back just stronger than ever, and I think that's when I started really just appreciating a lot more things, even a lot more than I did before. Because you never know. Somebody tells you, if you never been told you have cancer, you're like, like at first you're like, what, me? No, that's that guy, not me. But then I became general manager, and I've been general manager at the dealership for 6 years. Got a really, really great team, and my team doing what they do is also being able to give me an opportunity to go back out into our community and spend time. We do. I don't know if you've ever seen the segment. We do a server of the week. Every week we go to these restaurants. We give them $1,000 tip. We go to these athletes. We're giving these athletes in the high school $250 checks. And I'm super proud of the team because I'm able to do that.
That's cool.
I had one of my managers recently, he reached out to me and said, hey, I want to be able to do that one day too. And I said, listen, you already are. I said, if you didn't do what you're doing at the dealership, I wouldn't be out here able to do what I'm doing. So
nice.
we're together. We're giving back to this community. Yeah,
Exciting.
It's super exciting. It's probably some of my favorite times of the week.
You do that once a month?
Once a week, yeah.
Once a week?
Yeah, once a week. We've been doing it. We started doing, I don't know if you guys remember COVID-19.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So during COVID, we started doing essential workers. So at that time, everybody was essentials. So we started going around and doing essential workers, essential employee of the week. And then when things started opening up again, I said, hey, the people that got affected the most are these servers, right? Because a lot of restaurants were just closed down. So we wanted to help these servers. So now we go to these restaurants still today. It's been over 3 years every week, $1,000 to the servers.
That's great.
There's when they named the list of categories for essential workers,
Mm-hmm.
life insurance agents were one of them.
They were.
So how about you do like a once a year essential agent of the year?
We should do a life insurance and even like a pastor of the week, right?
Yeah, there you go, pastor of the week.
Because they were essential as well. So
yeah.
But no, we do what we can, and I enjoy being able to go back out there to the community and I invite you to stop by my store sometime and just I couldn't be more proud of the team that we have there, and the culture there is just amazing. It's just another extension of my family. So
yeah,
beautiful.
You're a blessed man.
Amen.
Gil.
Yes, I am blessed to be a blessing.
And we're very grateful that you took time out of your schedule. So
thank you
so much, brother.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
I thought we were playing poker.
Oh, let's go. You'll take all our money.
Yeah, I'd love to, and then I can give it back. But no, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we love you, and we love the nation of Israel. So we hope that as Americans, people in Coachella Valley, fathers, I think it's important that we have a voice to speak out on issues like this.
Yeah.
Sometimes borderline political, but to me, a lot of times what we're talking about are moral issues. And I think morally, there's things we stand for that should always be right and wrong. So
yeah,
thank you for who you are, and we'll be praying for the nation of Israel and you as well.
Thank you. Appreciate you.